Find yourself a booth, order up a cold one. This is the Spring Bar.
Hey everybody, welcome to Spring Bar. Glad to have you here. I am Florida Mike, sitting with my co-host Joe in the OC. And today, as you can see, we are joined by a very special guest, the managing director of Bulova Watch Co, Michael Benavente. Michael, how you doing today?
I'm doing even better now. It's good
Yeah.
to hang out with you guys today. Looking forward to spending some time.
Well, we're really tickled that you had the opportunity and the time to talk with us, and so we've got some great things in store. Good ideas.
So I'm excited. I'm ready.
Good. So let's get right into it then. No delays. Let's get into some wrist checks. Michael, you are our guest of honor. Why don't you go ahead and lead us off and tell us what you got on your wrist?
So your before.
Thank you, 2020. Oh, that's beautiful, though.
Sorry, Joe. That actually the watch you mentioned before we got on together was my second choice.
Well, see, we had a bet. We had a bet going. I said it was going to be the parking meter. Mike said it was going to be the 2020.
And you both nailed it. Because
I lost. I lost again.
Yep.
Well, see, you could have done Richard Proud and
I could have done one of these.
Yeah. Joe, what are you wearing?
I have on the Euro Devil Diver with the solid black bezel. Not available domestically, but still in that 41 millimeter size, which is just wonderful. Mike, what do you got?
So mine was inspired by a conversation Michael and I had just the other day. I am wearing the 1973 Jetstar A. This would be the cranberry dial version.
Now we got to come up with a. You say cranberry, like I would say Merlot.
That is not true. I have forever called it Merlot, and then you decided to go against me like you usually do and said
Burgundy.
No.
I mean, I prefer Burgundy to Merlot, but that's me personally. Pinot Noir just doesn't roll off the tongue quite the same.
No.
Right?
All right.
Not.
So, Michael, what is it? You settle the score. Is it Merlot or is it cranberry?
Well, as someone who loves wine, I would opt for Merlot if you were going to put
See, and that's what I've called it from the beginning, but I've been swayed otherwise. I'm going back to Merlot. That is the Merlot dial Jetstar.
Could we go with Claret? Could we just?
Oh, Claret. That's very
okay.
Nice.
Okay.
I like Clarets. Yeah.
Just getting my little California wine snob going on. Just,
Joe comes from wine country.
Such as.
All right. So on tap today, we are doing I guess we'll call it a Q&A session, but I feel like it's more going to be some just great conversation with some Bulova collectors here today. Joe, why don't you get us started in the conversation?
What we wanted to start off with is, like, when we think about Bulova as a company that with a historical perspective, where do you see Bulova currently kind of in the watch world? Because you've got the greater Citizen space that Citizen as the parent company. So where does Bulova position itself?
We see ourselves definitely as a very democratic watch brand. So we have to really fill a lot of different needs. Starting as an entry price, entry to luxury, really. And so $300 is where we start on a normal basis. And then we go today over $2,000 and up, that's not where we live every day, over 2,000, but we certainly do quite a bit of business, even in 1,000 to 2,000. So it's a complicated job in a way, because we are sold in many different channels of distribution. We really feel that we want to be where the consumer is. We want to be available where the consumer is. So we're not a 5,000 and up price point brand. So we need to be accessible. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
well, you did. But so when we're talking about kind of designing and designing space, collector space, like when you're looking at where you're positioning watches, are you looking at the price point? Are you looking at, where that watch should fall within a line? What's kind of your philosophy for that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we look across all of those different parameters, right? So when we look at the line, we also want to make sure that we're making watches available in all the different price segments, in bracelets and straps, in different ladies and men's. I mean, there's all the different parameters to look at. We're a pretty large line, although we've been very focused and trying to be very judicious about how many SKUs we make every season, every year. We're currently probably at about 250, but that serves all the different, channels of distribution and all the different pillars of product that we make.
Right.
And then in terms of I think the part 2 of your question about Citizen, we were purchased 13 years ago by Citizen Watch Group of Japan. They've left us pretty much alone in terms of the brand is based here in New York. All things emanate from New York. We have very strong partnerships in Japan, in Tokyo, and headquarters, and we have a team of Bulova dedicated people in Tokyo who are working with us here in the US, but it starts here. Product development starts here. Watches are designed in New York.
Wow. Okay.
So we really, we get the best of both worlds. I mean, the purchase, and I wasn't with the company at the time. I've been in the watch industry my entire adult life at this point, but the purchase was the best purchase that could have happened for Bulova because it also gave us the ability to use Miyota as a driving force for us. And we've benefited from day one almost. I think the first year that they purchased the company, the first gift that Tokyo gave us was the precisionist movement.
Yeah.
And that was a movement that had been over 10 years in development. Obviously, originally probably not intended for Bulova because they didn't know they were buying Bulova when they started making the movement, but they knew how important it was to get Bulova off to a good start under their leadership.
It was such a good fit, though. It was like looking at Bulova with the Accutron movement and the history of that, and then also this precisionist comes out. It's just like, oh, yeah. And I remember being really excited about those watches when they first showed up. It's like this is gonna be great. This is gonna be really, really good.
So I've always been kind of curious with your relationship and Citizen owning Bulova. And you saying that all your watch designs begin in New York and they kind of leave you alone. Now, when you design something or if you guys come up with new ideas, I mean, is that something that you have to run through Citizen or are you really just a separate entity altogether?
We're a separate entity. We are sending designs, forward, once everything is created here. We do share everything and collaborate with Tokyo because they're building out and having to do all of the engineering work and all of that. So, but they pretty much, let the Bulova brand be Bulova, if that makes sense. Yeah. Whereas Citizen is based in Japan. So headquarters for the Citizen brand is Japan. The design work, is happening at a large percentage of it is happening in Japan. Although this market or this subsidiary is quite large. And so they have some autonomy also in creating some things that are more, let's call it US centric or America centric, but they're different. We're not, we don't have someone designing Citizen today and then tomorrow he or she's designing Bulova. No, that's definitely not the case.
That's nice to know because when you think of a larger company that own several, let's just say for sake of argument, smaller brands underneath their umbrella, far too often people will say, oh, well, Bulova, that's a Citizen watch or that's a Citizen company or something. But it's nice to know that really you guys are standing on your own 2 feet when it comes to, being able to do really what you want to do and design the watches and to know that they're still being designed in the USA. That's very cool. Being that you guys
having them as the partner that really helps the production side. That
Yeah, it's really, it was the best thing that could have happened to Bulova, especially in the place that where it was at the time. Lowe's Corporation, owned Bulova at that moment. They were ready to move on. They had done, a very good job stewarding it, from the early 80s on. But, they weren't watch people, they were management and financial people. Going to Citizen really took us back to watch people, right? So, and it makes a difference, it definitely.
Oh, without question, without question.
So let's talk a little bit about the heritage of the design. And I guess this question would kind of fall into maybe the archive series. But how do you kind of manage expectations and decide which designs are worth reviving?
Yeah. So I started with the company 8 years ago. At the time, we didn't have an archive series, but I have to give credit where credit is due. I had worked on the Longines brand for many years, and Longines always had a heritage collection. I mean, they have a beautiful museum in Saint-Émile, Switzerland, and they've always been super respectful, of their past, and they have such a rich history, very much like Bulova. So, and I thought, wow, a brand like Bulova is very similar to Omega and Longines in terms of heritage. And
without question,
we're not, I would say if Citizen Japan biggest asset for buying this brand was its heritage, its history is incredible. And so we were given a gift also in 2015, in which the company, and I joined at the end of 15. But prior to me joining, I can't say his name, unfortunately, for legal reasons, but there was an astronaut who went up in space, and he, you know who he is, and he,
a little bit, yeah.
The company didn't know for 41 years that this had ever happened until early 2015.
I remember reading about all of that, and we won't mention any names, but there was a discussion that was going on throughout the internet about, well, it was a Waltham. He had a Waltham, and then it's like, I'll go check the safe deposit box. Oh, look, it's a Bulova, and immediately everybody freaked out. Oh my gosh, that's such a great story, though.
Yeah, and so gentleman called the company, spoke to the previous management that was here, and basically started, I guess, the negotiation, if you will, about the watch. And somewhere along the way, negotiations just broke down or stopped communicating for a few months. And all of a sudden, October of 15, I now started working for the company like maybe 2 weeks prior to this happening. And I put on my computer like I always do first thing in the morning. And right across my screen is like, Bulova sells at auction for highest amount ever, $1.6 million.
Yeah.
I'm like, what is this? I didn't know anything about this. I had, again, I've been with the company 2 weeks. And so I took it into the person who was responsible for things here at the time. And I said, I printed it out and I showed it to him. And I go, what's this all about? So he sits me down and he tells me the whole story. Now he was surprised because out of the blue, he didn't even know that the watch was going for auction. It just happened. And so I guess they were unaware that this was going to happen. And so we never even had a shot, I guess, at bidding for it because it just went up.
That's amazing.
So,
that's an amazing story.
And the reason I share that with you is because after that, it was very clear to me that had to be the first, if we were going to do this archive series, that had to be the first watch that we were going to do. So
the timing of that, like the way that I remember hearing about the discovery of the watch, and then there was rumble. And then, oh yeah, here's the auction. And I mean, it was fast. Then I also recall though, like the auction happened. And then what was the development time for that? How long did that take? It wasn't real long.
It took about 9 months. months.
Right? I thought it was like well under a year, and all of a sudden it's like, boom.
Yeah, I would say it was right at the cusp of what it takes us today. I mean, honestly, actually, lead times today are even longer. Brand new watches today, 9 to 12 months, depending on the complexity of the watch.
Well, it's not as long as I would have thought.
Oh, really? No, it used to be actually shorter. Supply
Really?
chains have gotten more complicated over the years. And this is not even COVID issue. This is even before COVID. It was already, getting longer. I'd say 15, 20 years ago, you were 6 months. You could really turn things around in 6 months.
Wow.
Wow, no kidding.
That's
Yeah.
impressive. Yeah. So all that said, if you were given the chance to purchase the watch today, would you guys?
I would.
Yeah.
I would. Yeah.
No, wait,
I mean-
is that like for the museum or for you personally?
No, for the museum. That's where it belongs. It belongs in the museum.
That would be
does.
a phenomenal addition, really. It would have to have its own case for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
Wow.
it was bought, it was, the person who has the watch, we don't know the person. He brought it anonymously. He didn't.
Yes.
Now I know a person who knows a person, if that makes sense.
Right.
Yeah, I know there's one degree of separation from someone that knows who the person is, but I know that he wants to be anonymous. So we just.
Oh, you have to respect that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
But
he knows where we are. So if he was ever interested, in moving from it, then we can certainly talk.
Wow, that'd be very cool.
I'm sorry, but if that showed up at my house, it's never leaving. It's not going anywhere. It'll be buried with me. That's it. My son doesn't even get it. It's like, no.
Oh God.
It's without exception, that is my Grail watch across the board. Been on the moon. I'm done. You can have everything else.
So talking about some of your other archive series, so I guess we'll refer to the analog shift survey where you guys had talked about 3 watches that you pulled the collector space on. So the parking meter, the surfboard, and the oceanographer, the devil diver. How did you guys come across choosing those 3? What kind of led you to that decision to pick those designs? I mean, you have such a truly amazing back catalog of stuff. So what led you there?
I would say requests. I mean, I would say those 3 watches for sure are always ones that are talked about, whether on forums or social media. They're legendary in terms of the early 70s chronographs that Bulova made. And so it made sense for us to start there because there's always, so much chatter, around those watches. So, the Stars and Stripes, Chrono C, all of those watches always get a lot of attention.
The part that was really interesting, because I remember seeing the poll that went up on Analog Shift, and I was looking at it, and I had been searching for the Oceanographer V, the orange dial. It's like they have to do an LE. They have to do a limited edition, which you did in a smaller size with the Salida movement, and I love it. I have it. I love it. It's one of my favorite watches. But then as we're sitting there looking, it's like then all of a sudden here comes the surfboard. It's like, wait a minute. Hang on, I know that one. And then all of a sudden, you talk about the parking meter, which has been getting a phenomenal buzz, by the way.
Yeah.
Like the people that I've been talking to and people that have been asking me questions about it. It's like, well, what do you think? What do you think? What do you think? I know that Mike's already ordered one.
Yeah.
So, kudos to that. That was an excellent series of choices.
Yeah. So let's talk about sizing a little bit.
Sure.
And everybody listening has now just turned up their volume because it always seems like sizing is such a touchy subject when it comes to reissues. So again, you and I talked the other day and we had this conversation a little bit, and I mentioned to you that with each archive release, you guys have done better and better on keeping true to the sizing. You started large with Devil Diver, shrunk it down a little bit for the surfboard, and you pretty much have it spot on with the parking meter. Yeah. So how do you kind of mesh the old designs with the current market and expectations for sizes, and how do you find that happy medium between what you would like to produce and what you kind of have to produce?
Yeah, the archive series is easier only because we do try to stay true to the original, give or take.
I mean, the Accutron Legacy series is just spot on in terms of sizing. It's phenomenal.
Those are beautiful. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, but those are controversial too. I'm telling you, sizes are like Goldilocks. I mean, it's too warm, it's too cold, right? And if there's 10 people in a room, could be 10 different opinions about what's the correct size. Also, not everyone has the same size wrist. I happen to have a small wrist, so I can't wear the Precisionist as an example. Our current iteration of Precisionist is a very large watch, and so for me, I've tried. It's tough. I mean, there's a couple.
Yeah, but that 2020 sits well though, doesn't it?
I was just going to say, you pull that Space View 2020 off. Really good.
Right.
Yeah, but this watch also wears. This watch wears a lot. Doesn't wear as large as the size. That's the other thing. Sometimes people get hung up on the size without seeing the watch, without putting it on their wrist. Like they'll see an Instagram post or social media post, and right away they'll see, 44 or 43, and they're just seeing it on a very flat dimensional screen. You have to put the watches on to see how they really fit, because I've definitely been surprised myself, with certain watches, maybe even from other brands that I've tried on, and say, wow, it wears a lot different than what you would say. But
and that's very true, because every time I find myself having this discussion or argument, as it always seems to turn out to with people, is I tell them you have to see it in person, especially with the Surfboard, because I own that one. You have to see it in person. Yeah. Joe has a mill ships, and I've never seen it in the metal until I went to the AD one day, and in the photos and on paper, 16 millimeter lugs doesn't make sense, but when you see it in person, it makes all the sense in the world.
When you wear it,
Pilot,
that whole like the in the metal thing, it's such a huge difference. Like you have to be able to handle the watch. You got to strap it on, because ankle, wrist bones, all the you got to wear it. It doesn't work otherwise. And so there's that argument about size, but then there's the argument about lug to lug width, and you got to put it on.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Lug. There's, how big is the crown? Is there crown protector? I mean, all those things also either enlarge or make smaller, the watch look and feel on your wrist.
Yeah.
But it's, we're paying attention more. I'd say more and more to size. We're trying to be respectful of, certainly within the watch community, we understand, that 39 to 41 is where everybody, kind of wants those watches to be. And so I think we're being more mindful, probably more so than ever before, about size. So we'll do better. We'll do better.
That's what's cool. And that's what I tell people is, really, you guys do listen. And far too often do people say, well, they don't care. They make large watches, and why can't they do this? And why can't they? Well, but you guys really are involved in Joe and I operate very heavy in the Instagram space. And that seems to be where, if you're a serious collector, a lot of people tend to operate, is that Instagram arena.
Yep.
And you guys, I know, pay attention to that. You follow along, you see what the conversations are, you are listening to what people are saying. And a lot of the stuff that you guys are doing, like you said, these past 3 releases are a lot of suggestions. So, hats off to you guys for really being such a large company, but really getting down onto the collector level and paying attention to what everybody is saying, and really bringing that to life for us. Because, these watches that you're doing, if you're going to buy an original nowadays, you're going to spend $1 million plus for a lunar pilot. You're going to spend on eBay. There is a surfboard right now selling for $4,000. And if you want one, that's really the one that's available. Parking meters are going for $5,000 and up. Chronograph Cs are $2,500 to $3,000.
Right.
You're bringing that opportunity for, and even people like myself who weren't able to be around in the era when these were even available originally. You're allowing us the opportunity to have that feeling of purchasing it firsthand and having that brand new piece in our hands and on our wrists, and to be able to enjoy that at a reasonable price point.
And you can get it wet.
Yeah.
Well, that was the main, I mean, honestly, at the end of all of it, and Joe's question, the original question, the main intention of the archive series was exactly that. I have 4 kids. Their old man's always been into watches. So unfortunately for them, you know, they were forced to pay attention to watches. But I saw the trend already early on with the youngest. So my youngest are twins and they're 22 now. But I saw the trend happening already like in the last 5-6 years where they were paying attention to watches. They were interested in watches, not because of me, but also their friends as well. And something happened along the way, whereas our generation, I'll say the 3 of us guys here, because we're about the same age, maybe give or take, we got into watches originally as a utilitarian item, right? Like when we were growing up, if we wanted to, we needed to know the time, we had to buy a watch, right? We had to buy a watch. We got our first watch, our parents got us our first watch, and we got, you know, then whatever, we progressed. This generation that I'm talking about, my kids, our kids, they don't need a watch. They could care less about, I mean, you know, they don't.
It's obsolete at this point.
Exactly.
Completely. Yeah.
But what something happened along the way is they discovered their dad's collection, their mom's collection, their grandparents' collection.
Right.
And I say it the same thing that happened with audio and records, right? No one needs to start a record collection today. I mean, you got streaming, you got downloads, you got, you know, you got all of it. But what happened 5, 6, 7 years ago? We started selling phonographs again.
Yeah, vinyl sales just have peaked.
And vinyl. If you go to Brooklyn on any Saturday when they do the new releases, there's lines around the corner at certain record shops.
Record store day. Absolutely.
So that's the whole thing behind archive series, is really making it accessible to a whole new generation. That in the case of Bulova, we're going to be 150 years old in 2025. We're coming up on a big anniversary.
Yeah.
And how do we make some of those really great watches available again to a whole generation of people that never would get a chance to see it? Really?
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So moving forward though, you guys have gotten into this, there's a slightly different change, the change in the philosophy. And it seems that the watches are a little bit more limited in terms of numbers. So the parking meter is what, it's 5,000 pieces.
Yeah.
Right? Is that going to be, because that's going to be a commonality moving forward, that we're looking at a limited number of, in particular, colorways or design features, and then moving on to something different? What's the new design philosophy?
Yeah, I mean, the community likes limited editions. I mean, I think everyone enjoys the fact that I know that I have, you know, there's only going to be X of this particular model. So that certainly helps drive interest and sales, you know, in that particular watch. We're trying to find the balance, you know, of the quantity. To be honest, the quantity really comes also from working with our sales teams. You know, so we'll show them the watch, you know, we'll get, you know, basically allocation requests from the different markets throughout the world. All of our launches are worldwide. We do a very nice business in Europe, especially in Italy.
Yes.
Asia.
Oh man, there's some vintage stuff in Italy.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
Yeah, Italy is the #1 market within Europe, you know, followed very closely by the UK. And so South America, we handle from New York. So we handle all of Central and South America. Mexico is a separate subsidiary. So these launches are worldwide. We put it out there, we get allocations, and then we try to come up with a number that's fair. We also want to see them all go. We don't want them sitting around. So we want them all to have a home. So the parking meter is an example. I mean, we came up with let's say a demand of about 5,000 pieces that we knew that if we made 5,000, they were all going to find a home. And we were going to be able to hit all the regions of the world with 5,000.
I think we've been talking about this. This is something that came up. Like, so I have the vintage 1971 Oceanographer V, the orange dial, the snorkel with the sort of the same dial configuration.
You have the day date.
Yeah, the day, right? The vintage, and I also have the reissue as well. But the reissue was.
Sorry, remind me to tell you a story about that.
Please do. Yes, inside scoop. The fact that like the 1971, the original, there couldn't have been more than 5,000 pieces. It was made for 1 year. It's and like you think about like supply side, and so looking at how collectible that particular model is, that way, like, the demand for that is like the number seems to hit just about right. I'm not upset about that at all. But I like trying to, like, okay, how can I get it to everybody? How can they all find a home? Because let's face it, what Mike and I are looking at this a lot from the collector space, a lot from the vintage collector space.
Sure.
You are looking at it from the retail. Let me make my bottom line. Let me make sure we can be profitable, make sure I have a job next year space. And there's a difference between where we both sit. Obviously, you've got the Bulova Museum background and I've got two random doors. So, and Mike's in a closet. So what else can
I have a stock certificate though.
Wait, you're not supposed to say he's in the closet. He's in the studio.
It's true. Yeah, we don't talk about that.
So the other part you had asked about LE versus non. So the intention also not only to have a limited edition that excites, the community, let's call it, right? We also want to have variations of said limited edition that should be available all the time. Like,
right.
When the watch makes it into the archive series, it's understood that that's a watch that was important in the history of Bulova. So we also say, you know what, those watches should always be available. They should always be in the collection under this heritage or archive series from now until doomsday. That's how we view it. So
and it's funny that you bring that up, because I was going to ask you, the parking meter is the first release really that doesn't have a mainstream production counterpart. So whereas the surfboard had the limited edition mechanical, the
Devil Diver had the same,
had the V,
the mill ships also.
The mill ships, yeah, that one too. So this one you went strictly limited. So what was your reason to keep this one a limited production run versus having two versions?
This one only had really, all the other watches that you mentioned had variations to it, whether it was color or strap, bracelets, what have you. The parking meter was really, that was the most, there were a couple, one or two other variants, but the one that we ended up going with is the most infamous one, if you will.
Yeah.
So,
without question. Yeah.
Yeah. Can we come out with another version? We can. We'll wait and see. It may not be a limited version to your point. We could come out with it with another variation, but let's see, let's see how it does. Let's see how long it takes us to go, through the 5,000. I think they'll go probably, pretty quickly, but
so
we like to wait and see,
Based on the last couple of weeks that it's been out now and getting the buzz, has it been doing pretty well in sales so far?
Well, as you know, because you're waiting for yours, I'll share it because people will appreciate the complexity of, so the watches really weren't supposed to be here till next month. And through luck, I guess, we got them early, so they came in a bit earlier than were expected. So that was the good news. The bad news is that the packaging or the box, because it has a special box, did not come in early. It's coming in as it was supposed to, which is in another, week or so, I guess. So I haven't shipped them yet, but yes, for the pre-sale or the pre-orders have been very nice.
Good.
So they're not out.
Good.
They're not out in stores yet. They're not out in distribution.
Right.
So
Yeah.
We haven't seen one in the wild, not yet.
no, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet.
So I
Now,
heard.
now,
though, you
hang on,
guys-
hang on. There is a bone to pick here. There is a bone to pick here because the initial rumblings that we had heard were suggesting fall. This is not the fall. Mike had already allocated his money, and then all of a sudden you come out early, and so now he has to. Just saying.
Well, I know his credit card hasn't been officially billed yet. So only because he shared that with me because he was concerned.
So where does the archive series go from here? You guys, you basically completed the analog shift poll. What do you say? And I know you're just coming off of releasing this and you kind of want to take a breather from it, but I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you anyways. What's next?
Well, don't forget, because I know you guys are guys, but don't forget we did the American Girl this year.
Yeah, we're just going to mention
Which is
you
an
did that one.
excellent release. Oh my gosh, that was so good.
Very
The
unexpected.
bracelet design was stunning. The dial was beautiful. Everything about that was great.
And Joe and I have had this conversation on more than one occasion. There should be more ladies pieces like this. Joe and I both have vintage ladies pieces, and I think we would both appreciate that being brought into the market, on an archive basis to involve, more of the collector space. So that piece, phenomenal, absolutely gorgeous.
You got 2 archive pieces this year, is what I'm trying to say. You're getting spoiled.
I'll take it. I'm just saying.
So definitely, I think one of the other really nice developments is, and again, it's generational that we're seeing is women. Women really paying attention, especially in this sector of heritage or archive. I think there's a growing community of women that are also entering the space. So I'm excited about that. We're looking at the Art Deco era.
Wow, okay.
Miss Liberty,
So there's some beautiful watches.
Well, you guys are doing very well with the Joseph Bulova series too. Some of them cases and those designs are just as beautiful, and even the Frank Lloyd Wright watches, those are just as beautiful too.
Frank,
the new release is also gorgeous style design.
Yeah, Frank Lloyd Wright is our oldest collaboration. It's been over 25 years that the company has a relationship with the Frank Lloyd Wright Society. Yeah. And actually, it was a very, I'm going to say, kind of sleepy relationship in terms of it was really started in the clock division. So it was clocks that had
right. That's right.
And so for many, many, many years, it was just basically clocks. And then our clock division head, Paul Hoffman, Paul started introducing a couple of watches. I think he had maybe 5, and they always all did kind of well, but we didn't really do much to it. It was just like kind of out there and what have you. And I think what opened our eyes to that collaboration was, I guess it was about 5 years ago now, we did a limited edition in a really nice presentation box, Frank Lloyd Wright, for one of the anniversaries. I don't remember off the top of my head which one.
Yeah.
And we did 500 and they sold out in like 2.2 seconds. They went fast. And that was like that was a message to us that we had to pay attention. So I think where we are today, and we're just now introducing, you're going to see some new things coming out this fall. Fall for us, Joe, is really summertime on. So when we say fall, it's not the literal sense of the season.
I understand lead times, but July is not fall. I'm just saying.
I'm whenever they come early with product, that's a good day.
I will not argue that at all, ever.
Especially since the COVID time, supply chains were definitely challenged, in Asia. So we weren't getting things so early, let's say. So things have really come back online, let's say. In terms, I think we're feeling much better about supply chain right now. So that's really good.
So that's cool.
So ladies, Mike, I think it's Art Deco series. As you know, you and I had a chat, about Jetstar and a potential, for us going down, that lane.
The issue that shows up though, and it's a unique problem that very few brands have, because Bulova is getting ready to celebrate 150. And when you start looking at design language, some brands, it's like, okay, we live in this kind of space and it's a small space and we only do this sort of thing. Bulova's got everything. You've got iconic ladies watches. You've got watches from the 20s. You've got some of the early wrist watches. You have some of the more iconic dive watches. You have quartz watches. You have and the list goes on and on and on. And just trying to figure out, like, where should I pick and choose? It was one of the things that struck me about the Sinatra line specifically, that you went through and got some of the iconic shapes, some of the iconic dial layouts, and those watches are a real hit. They're really well done. I gotta say, I'm very impressed with even like the design changes that have happened just this year with the Summer Wind release.
Yeah, that's doing very well. Summer Wind's doing really, really well.
Yeah, there's some great choices there.
The Sinatra collection was actually kind of easy in terms of honing in on where we wanted to be, because our relationship with Frank was late 50s, early 60s. And so we really, thought about, and we have, obviously a relationship with the family, Nancy Sinatra, and really the team that runs all things Sinatra Enterprises. So it's nice that we still have that link to the family. And so we do a gut check with them just to make sure that, as they say, Dad would have worn that, Dad had that, You
can't argue that though. I mean, Frank wore it.
He wore a lot of Bulova and Accutron watches. He wasn't a big jewelry guy. So if you look at a lot of images of Frank, you don't see a lot of jewelry on Frank. He used to sometimes wear a pinky ring. He used to have a tie bar. But outside of that, he wasn't really wearing a lot of jewelry. So it was really the watch. And he certainly had, his share of Bulovas and Accutrons.
Yeah,
that's very cool.
From that period,
it's such a good collection too. It really is. Like the looking at the design language that's come through there specifically, and with some of the more iconic, some of the watches from that era, and integrating and incorporating all that design. Yeah, it's fantastic. So shifting gears, we've heard the rumblings for the return potentially of the tuning fork movement. This has been talked about for a while. There was the reissue of the reconstruction of the tuning fork movement. There have been a variety of other things that have gone on. So is there a status report on that? Is there a potentiality for that? Where do we stand on that?
Well, and I think it's important to note too that the reverse engineered one was just that, reverse engineered by hand, but we're talking mass production version of the tuning fork.
Right.
That's right, Mike. So for the 50th anniversary, which was, over 10 years ago now, they worked on a very painstakingly 1,000 pieces that, in speaking to various engineers that, worked at Miyota over the years, they said they never want to have to ever do that again.
I can only imagine.
It was very painful from what they said. So I wasn't with the company at the time, but certainly all 1,000 of those watches went pretty quick.
Yes. They did. They're fantastic presentation case.
Yeah, rightfully so.
Watches. And they're also completely integrated. The parts are interchangeable with vintage, which is just phenomenal. Well,
I've heard different stories. Some people say it is. Some people say they're slightly different in size, and not every part is. So
it's larger. It is large. I mean, some parts may translate perhaps, but the movement itself was larger. The case was larger. Right. So those are all things that are still, the team in Tokyo is working on the project. I can tell you that. They've done studies. to see if it was feasible. They've gone beyond the study now and working on it. I would say that's the update, Mike. They're still challenged by a couple of items that make up the watch, and one of them is certainly the gear, that has 360 teeth that are cut
Those
into
index
it.
wheels.
The
Yeah.
index wheel.
Can't touch it with your bare hands. All of the problems that go with that. There's a specific holder that came from Accutron to put the move. Yeah.
So all of those things are being tackled, one by one. I would say that, they've gotten through a lot of the challenges that would impede them, to your point, Mike, also to mass produce the watch. It has to be able to be made somewhat easily, within reason. They don't want to have where engineers are, like leaving and quitting because they can't, they're so stressed out, on making those 1,000 that they made for the 50th anniversary. So I would say there's a 50-50 shot still. Maybe even better than maybe better than 50%, but it's one of those items, people will ask me, well, oh my God, we're so advanced today. It's unbelievable. We can't make something that was made in 1960. But the issue is that in 1960, there was a whole infrastructure around making that movement, and all of that infrastructure disappeared when the company decided to stop making it, in the mid to late 80s. With the advent of quartz, it was pretty much somewhat obsolete at that moment. Today, it's all about nostalgia. So everybody wants it for the nostalgic reasons.
Yeah. So are you, or is Miyota, because I'm assuming they're the ones that are developing this.
Yes.
Are they using some of the original tooling to help them in the development of this?
No,
or it's all...
no, it would all have to be redone. It all has to be retooled. Also, the old tooling was for a technology that was from 1960. I mean, we can do better. The good news is actually we can improve on it. I mean, so they're looking at things that they would improve upon the movement that, again, it's been 60 years. So we should be able to improve on some of the things and make it better.
So a conversation Joe and I were having just the other day was, you're going through all the trouble of making this movement. What would you put it in? And I was kind of on the side of doing a space view, because you don't want to go through all this trouble and hide everything that you guys have gone through to reproduce it. But will it possibly go into some, designs like 218 designs where the movement was hidden, but you still know it was a tuning fork. You still know it was an Accutron.
Yeah, no, I mean, it would go into what we now have as legacy. I mean, a lot of those legacy cases that we use for the
I could see that.
Those were the greatest hits. I mean, those were literally, I call them the greatest hits because those were the greatest hits of the design part. I mean, Accutron stood for accuracy and technology, right? And the other part of it was design. I mean, those cases still stand up today. I mean, the Alpha
case is so beautiful. It always has been.
The football, the what we call internally the Elvis watch, which Elvis had one of the early Accutron 14-karat gold versions that we have in the museum. I mean, those would all be candidates for and maybe even design something new. I mean, not only look back but also look forward.
Yeah.
So more to come. We got to get the movement first. That'll be a nice problem to have. I hope we have that problem.
For sure.
So in terms of like we're talking about, it's a 60, 70-year-old technology. And how are you tapping into your former employees, other people that you can use as resources? Because I know it's just got to be huge.
We have all of the design drawings. We have all of that, thankfully, and certainly Tokyo has that to use as background for it. But you really have to, at the end of the day, you still have to be able to design, to build it in today's world, with today's equipment. And so some of the stuff is helpful, but some of the stuff has to be redone, so.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Well, it's you got to wrap a mile of wire around something the size of a centimeter, and you can't do that by hand. There has to be an industrialized process for it. And so figuring out how to redo that and do that again, it's going to take a minute.
Yeah, exactly. So they've been working on it. So there's a team on it. So it's not just like, we're not taking it seriously. We are, but let's see what comes out. It's still in progress. We would love to do it for the 150th anniversary of Bulova, which again is in 2025. And so that we're using as a landmark year to see if we can,
the pressure is on.
The pressure's on.
Right. Yeah.
There's a goal, there's a goal to shoot for, I want to say one thing. It was one of your earlier questions also about Bulova and, like, what does it stand for and what does it mean? And really, I think what's special about Bulova, and I worked in the Swiss watch business, exclusively before coming here, right? And so Switzerland is Switzerland, and it's, there's a certain ethos and a certain way that they work. But I think what's different about Bulova and what makes it so special is that it's always been an American-based company. I mean, the brand has been here uninterrupted for 147 years. And so the previous management teams, over all of these decades, were always American, always based here in New York. So they had a different point of view, let's say, than Switzerland. Right. And so I think that comes through, in how the products were marketed all these years. I mean, the first radio commercial, the first television.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. The world runs on, we run on Bulova time. Absolutely.
I mean, 1941, we were the first television commercial ever. I mean, not the first watch commercial, the first commercial ever. And so that comes from being in America and being, having access to whatever that media was at the time. And so I would say we still operate with that ethos. We still are looking things in a totally different way, than maybe the watch industry and watch collectors are used to. And so sometimes, we look at things much differently.
Okay, so that brings up an interesting question, though, and this is we're off script here. Just a minute. Let me bring this up for you.
I'd rather be off script. You see,
yeah, we can do that.
Get out of the box, Joe.
So we're talking about the Made in the USA marker, and it's in following the discussions. There's a company in Colorado that's doing a quartz movement that's all in house. There's the RGM brand in Pennsylvania that's doing everything there. And there's very few there's assembled in America. Shinola has, that stuff. And then you've got Vortic, who is redoing heritage watches, and it's American made pocket watch movements.
We speak to them, RT.
Yeah. It's a phenomenal company. My watchmaker does some work for them as well. Where does Bulova stand when it comes to Made in the USA? Is that something that you're looking at? Is that something that's interesting?
Interesting. We would certainly love to, be able to do that again. It's infrastructure, it's
right.
I was actually hopeful at one time, because I worked for the Swatch Group. And so Hamilton, being, in the Swatch Group fold, I thought maybe Mr. Hayek Sr. at one time, would be able to pull that off. And he backed away from it as well. It's
no kidding.
It's complicated. There's not a know-how here. There's not a lot of know-how. When the U.S. watchmaking business ended in the 70s and early 80s, it split off to Switzerland or to Asia, and most of it went to Asia. So all of that know-how, is gone now. I mean, yes, you listed a couple of examples, very small production.
Oh yeah, tiny, nowhere close to the scale.
Right.
But that sort of dovetails into the veteran watch initiative that I know that Bulova was responsible for in the 40s and is still involved with today.
Artie Bulova started the Joseph Bulova School. So the Joseph Bulova School, which was fully intended for veterans, coming back from after World War II. And so that was fully funded by the Bulova Foundation at the time. And so every veteran that came back from the war who wanted to get a job as a watchmaker and showed aptitude for it, would go through the school, come out a watchmaker, and he didn't have to pay anything or it was all
Such an amazing bit of heritage.
Sam Cannon, who is at the Veterans Watchmaker Initiative, who's the founder of the Veterans Watchmaker Initiative, he was a graduate of the Joseph Bulova School. So it was incumbent on us to try to support Sam as best we could and can. And so, we're active with Sam. He's in Odessa, Delaware, so he's not too far from us. I've been down for a couple of the graduating classes. It's just, Sam's a great person. He's just one of the best people you ever meet.
We did an interview with a gentleman who had been there to visit, and he just had nothing but glowing reviews about the whole process, about the whole procedure. And then this is before the hack watch that you guys release to benefit that program, which I thought was just a phenomenal gesture. Kudos to that. And it's such a nice watch too. It really is. And the case back as well. Everything about that was just out of the park.
Yeah, I invite everybody to go on Sam's website, check out the work he's doing. He really does God's work, to be honest. I've met the graduates, that have come out of the school, and they're so blessed that, they were able to have the opportunity to go through it, and they're all very successful. I mean, they all graduated super successful, because Sam is training very much in a combination of the WASTEP and the Joseph Bulova. So, because he went through both programs, so he's kind of taken the best, as he explains it, from both ways of teaching. And so these guys and ladies are coming out of the school really well trained. I mean, to the point that the watchmaking part, because he has a watch tech graduation degree, and he has a watchmaker's degree. The watchmakers leave.
Yeah.
They know how to make every part inside a watch before they graduate.
And we were talking about this vintage space and looking at some of the Bulova productions from the 1950s with the Bulova New York movements. Parts are harder to find, Accutron's in that same boat. And so we're, looking at it from the collector's standpoint, you need somebody who knows how to make a bushing. You need somebody who can make their own, winding stems and other parts that they're not readily available anymore. Having the watchmaker it's a big deal. It's a really big deal.
And we're lucky that Sam's in, I don't want to say how old he is, but he's on in his years now. So, we need to get whatever's in his brain into everybody else's brain, as many as possible, because the industry, we're selling more mechanical watches today than ever before. So,
yeah. And they're going to all have to be fixed at one point.
Yeah.
It's maybe not a dying skill, but it's endangered. It's definitely,
it's not a dying art, but it's nice to know that there are programs like this.
There's not enough.
There's not,
right.
There really isn't. But it's nice that there are people out there who still want to get involved on this level and be able to learn these, technical aspects of the movements and how to make the watch work and how to repair it and just keep this going on. That's super important.
I have to give a shout out also to RT at Vortic. You were talking about Vortic.
Yeah.
Before. I mean, he's been very involved. He's done some very nice donations to the school.
Yes.
He's been really active, with the Veterans Watchmaker Initiative. He's been great. So shout out to those guys.
Yeah. They've been doing some really phenomenal work, and their case, yeah. Everything about that program and that company, they're doing really, really great stuff. So moving on. So let's talk about how you interact with the collector space, because you've done the analog shift stuff. You've got the reissues things, and obviously we've spoken a couple of times. You've reached out to us in a variety of different medium. How else do you involve with the collectors?
I like to do more of it. I mean, this is why I'm here. I don't think we've probably done enough, maybe overt types of things. We just finished doing the wind up shop show in Chicago.
Yeah, sounded so good too.
I wasn't there for that. We sent actually two of our younger guys that are here in the office that are uber watch aficionados, I would say. So they were both there, and they did some really good work there. We're going to do it again in New York. So again, these are the first times that we're doing these smaller shows, and we're doing watch time as well. But we're going to do watch time with Accutron. I don't think Bulova will go to watch time. It runs at the same time as,
right.
So we're excited about that. So we're really, we're trying harder, if you will, to reach out, to the community and certainly listening and interacting.
It's such a nice thing too, because what we were, our interaction and our interaction with you specifically came from, something that we wanted to do to help the World Central Kitchen, and that got onto your radar, which is showing that as a company, you are paying attention to what's going on, and that you reached out to us specifically and said, how can we help? We'll match the donation, which, just from our standpoint, doing what we could to have the support that came from one of the companies that we revere, that was so huge. But then to be able to get into the dialogue and to have you offer to come on and speak with us and speak about these things, sort of a no holds barred, it's a nice bit of engagement. And I think that it really speaks to the way that the company wants to start interacting with the collector community, with the consumer directly almost.
Yeah, I mean, that's where the world is going, I mean, it's going in community. I mean, we do a lot of collaborations these days. We've had the Grammy collaboration for a long time now, almost 8 years.
The Latin Grammy stuff is great too.
Latin Grammys, which, we have a very strong, passionate following with the Latin community. So, we do outreach in that community as well. So it's really just trying to infect the different communities, if you will, and bring ourselves, into where they are, into their space, right? That's really what's important today. You can't have just one message, because, there's so many different stakeholders. There's this community of people in the watch community, but then there's others, right? There's other areas. Thinking about Accutron, where we launched at the Couture show, at our trade show in June, the La Paulina Accutron collaboration.
Oh, that was so good too.
Yeah,
Man, that watch box. Wow. Yeah.
Oh, the humidor. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's really entering into the space of the cigar world, right? So cigar smokers are also many of them are also very passionate about timepieces. And so that'll be fun to really, inject ourselves into that group and make them aware of Accutron and Bulova.
So what about something like on a more local type level, like doing pop-up nights at certain of your more well-known ADs or things like that, where you guys just showcase some of your new ideas, some of the Spaceview 2020s, just invite people in for a nice evening out with Bulova?
We're totally open-minded about that. In terms of independent jewelers, actually, there are a couple of new players coming online. I don't know if there's one in Orlando yet, in the Orlando area, but there's definitely West Coast. We definitely have some in Miami, in the Miami area. But don't forget, Accutron was launched during COVID. I mean, literally, opened up 30 accounts, I think, that first year on Zoom. And really, travel hasn't really started until this year in earnest. I mean, last year even was kind of wobbly. So there's new accounts coming online, or new places certainly for Accutron. Bulova has a pretty big footprint, but yeah, no, we have a project that's been actually on our list for a long time now, too long. We want to have a moving museum. We want to have a traveling museum.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No.
Yeah. Where we take pieces of our museum out, because everyone can't get to New York and everybody can't get into the Empire State Building. So that would allow us to really bring some of the great treasures that we have here out to everybody else to see. So
yeah, and that's a phenomenal idea. Yeah,
that's on our list.
That'd be great. Wow. I'd follow that from city to city. I got the time. We can make that work.
Joe would be your groupie.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Who am I kidding? I probably would be too.
I think we're
You're
going
right.
to maybe we put Joe to work on that one.
Yeah.
I got some vacation time coming up. I'm just saying, we might be able to make that happen.
Yeah.
So, all right. We've got in the portfolio, you've got Accutron, which is a separate brand now, but still under the Bulova heading. You've got Bulova, which is sort of our flagship.
Right.
Let's talk about Caravelle for a minute. Redheaded stepchild? What?
Is the kind of the forgotten side of you guys.
No, we still, it's not forgotten. We had a lot of challenges with Caravelle back, 8 years ago.
Right.
The company had been changed basically to CNY, had been changed to CNY. Caravelle had pretty much been dropped. CNY was basically a fashion watch line
Right.
created. It was like, again, some of the looks that were available in all of the other fashion lines. It was a really nice quality watch, certainly probably at higher spec watch than some of the fashion watches that they were emulating. But if somebody wants a Michael Kors, they're going to buy a Michael Kors. I don't think they're going to buy a CNY. So
Right.
just saying. So that took several years to get beyond. Then we had to kind of decide, okay, where do we want to go? So we decided, well, we're going back to Caravelle. So we dropped the CNY and made it Caravelle again. And then we added on the marketing and packaging and wherever, we can put it, designed by Bulova. So it's Caravelle designed by Bulova, but it doesn't say Bulova on the dial. So it's Caravelle.
So, and you kind of hit the nail on the head. Caravelle was very much fashion design. And I think it compared to some of the others that you mentioned on the market, they kind of fell by the wayside. If you look into the current catalog, you can start to see some older design come back. You have some of the tank models or the tank cases. You have some of the I can't think of the exact name, but the diver style tonneau shaped case with the little integrated bezel. You have some of these designs starting to come back. So are you starting to put a little more focus into Caravelle and kind of bring back what Caravelle used to be design wise, or is it pretty comfortable in the space that it's in now?
No, we're definitely not comfortable. We feel better than we did before. It's also resources. Accutron, that took several years of planning.
There's a bit of focus going on there. A lot of there.
Yeah, and it's not a stepchild, not in the least. I think there's a very big opportunity, more than ever, in Caravelle. It's just about finding bandwidth. Sometimes you have to make decisions, on where, we have a team here, but we don't have more people, we have the team we have, right? So we all have to kind of work on the different items that we have to work on. We are doing work on Caravelle, I can tell you. I mean, there's a future for Caravelle for sure. You guys, I don't know if you're aware originally how Caravelle was started or why it was started, but I found.
Please.
If you know the story, then I'll shut up. But
oh no, I want to hear it from you because.
But basically, Caravelle was started in 1963, and it was started as a distribution play because Bulova wouldn't sell certain channels of distribution. Bulova, so specifically drugstores at the time. If you remember back in the 60s and 70s, there were a lot of independent drugstores. Right? Mm-hmm. Today, they almost don't exist because Walgreens and CVS and Wayne Reed and whoever else, came in and swallowed them all up. But
mom and pop drugstore.
Back in the day, there were no, in the 60s and 70s, there were no chain or very few chain drugstores. And if there were, they weren't as big as they are today. It was, 3 or 4 independent drugstores in your town, in your community, right? So they all sold, right? They, in the back was the pharmacy, and in the front they sold a lot of different items, and one of the items were watches. So they wanted Bulova, but Bulova, knew that they would have a very hard time selling drugstores and then the independent jeweler down the block. So they had to come up with a new scenario, and so the scenario was Caravelle. But that's why you see in the 60s and 70s, especially, you'll see Caravelle watches that look very much like Bulova.
The design language is so great. And like Mike and I both have Caravelles in our collection. I've been kind of on a kick lately, and I've picked up some of the designs are just, they're so funky and it's so great. And you can see there's a little bit, it seems that there was a little bit more almost experimentation, or Caravelle was almost willing. It's like, okay, we're going to hang it out just a little bit further. And it's great. They work. They really, really work,
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't think we want to do that. No, in terms of copying, of doing Bulova watch, like having a Bulova watch and then making it again in a Caravelle. But I think there's the archive that we have for Caravelle. So there's certainly styles that we can go after that are cool and retro. And it fills a need, it fills watches under $300, right? So we want Caravelle to be, 0 to 300, let's say, and then for Bulova to pick up from there.
Right.
And go
it's all going to fill within.
Yeah.
So that's the plan,
that's exciting though. That's exciting because there's a heritage there.
Yeah.
We have actually a line review coming up for Caravelle in the next couple of weeks. So let's see what comes of that, because they've been working on it. A design team has been working on it, so it should be fun.
So when you talk with somebody, especially like Joe, and Joe is very obsessed with the 666 divers.
I know.
You have now the Caravelle Sea Hunters are held in extremely high regards in the collector world. Could you perhaps do a Caravelle Sea Hunter archive issue?
Why not? Why don't you guys, Joe, why don't you send me what you have?
I got you.
Send me what you have and let's look at it.
Okay. I can do that.
Cool.
For sure. Yeah.
Yay. Yay.
What movement do you want in there?
Oh, well, personally, Le Jour Perret would be fantastic. I think
the world's most expensive Caravelle.
That would be fantastic. It's not going to be under 300. That's all.
Well, it's a limited edition. What are you going to do?
Yeah.
One of one, maybe. Well, you know what? I've got very little to say in that terms of the design. Quartz would be cheap. Mechanical would be better. Hand wound would be ideal. However,
well, there were several.
You had that option all the way through the line.
Miota movement Sea Hunters. Back in the 70s. So I think if you did another Miota movemented Sea Hunter, it'd kind of bring it full circle again.
Right.
Very much so. I would agree.
Yeah,
I would agree with that. And I know
Joe, you're in charge, right? You're going to send me what you have.
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
Done.
Thank you.
Done. It's going to take me 10 minutes.
Okay.
So, Bulova being a large company and working with multiple partners, like who are you working with? So you've got case designers, you've got movement designers, you've got the Citizen Corporation. So what is that like, and how does that come together with the large portfolio that Citizen has?
Yeah. So as mentioned, it all starts with the design, with the project. We've spoken about price points. We've spoken about where we envision the watch being sold to whom. So once all that gets worked out, then we start talking about what movement are we going to use. So for example, live example, Joseph Bulova collection. That was always for us an homage to Joseph Bulova. That was supposed to be, the top of the pyramid, let's say, within the company. And so that had to be Swiss, so we knew that for us, that's Salida. At least at that time, for sure it was Salida. And that's how we went that route. In terms of Tokyo, in terms of Japanese made Miota, if the project's going to be Miota, then it goes, we have a manufacturing arm that's ours, that's in Asia. And then they take the work on from that point. Once the design and all of that has been worked out, they get it. And then it's their responsibility to do the sourcing, from that point. So that's where we really turn it over to them. We have a product development gentleman who's been here for many years, John, and John works very closely, with them overseas.
Excellent. Excellent. So you have so many, though, there's so many different options from just looking like within the Citizen group. And what's the interplay like between the different companies? I know that like Bulova is its own thing, and Bulova has its own design language, designers, and kind of separate. What's the interplay between the different companies like, though?
So one of my boss is a group person, so he sits here in the office in New York, and so he has oversight over all of the brands that are in the portfolio here. I think one of the most important parts of the work that we've done in the last many years was to really separate Citizen brand and the Bulova brand. I think if you looked at both brands 15 years ago, I used to like to say, and I wasn't even with the company, but it was so obvious. It was Seiko, Citizen, and Bulova. It was like the Hatfield and the McCoys, like they were just like, it was a shootout every day. But if you looked at the showcases in the store, they all looked the same. If one brand had success with something, the other two brands would copy and do the same thing over again. So I think thankfully those days are over now. I think you see Citizen has a very specific look to it. Certainly they have Echo Drive. We do not. We have Precisionist. They do not. We have Curve. They do, no one, these are proprietary movements to Bulova. We don't share with Citizen. Citizen won't share, Echo Drive with us. They do Pro Master's a big pillar for them. We're really not doing that type of sport watch. We're doing more of a elegant, classical, elegant type of sport watch, or we're doing a heritage type of sport watch. We're not, professionally made, sport watches or doing that.
Right.
So I think we have a pretty clear, I think today we have a pretty clear path amongst the two of us, Citizen and Bulova. Accutron is really so unique that doesn't, that's over here. And then Frederic Constant and Alpina is, Swiss made, Geneva brand. So that doesn't, that doesn't mess with anything. So we all have really clear, paths to take.
But that sort of brings up, though, there's the discussion about the new Wilton GMT, which is a brand new movement, GMT movement, beautiful design, just as stunning. When is that going to be released?
It just dropped.
Right.
It just dropped. It's on Teddy Baldassari, Teddy.com and Bulova.com to start. He's got a couple of weeks of exclusivity, and then we'll start shipping that watch probably towards the end of August.
And it's receiving some great feedback for being.
The case is too big. The case is too large.
Why except
you make a 40.
But you got to put it on. You got to put it on, right? And I'm really curious to see that one in the metal. I mean, I need to get up to one of my ADs that are local and just try that on, really look at it, because I think that puts that moves into a certain space and into the design language that goes with it, the elegance of the lugs, the way that the case is designed, the mixing of the finish.
Well, the watch itself, is beautiful, but people are talking about the true GMT mechanical movement at the price point where you're at with it is. You're really going to do very well with that. I think phenomenally well.
It's definitely a first. I mean, definitely in terms of introductory price, it's a GMT Traveler, so it has all of the features of watches that are thousands of dollars.
Yeah,
more.
That's what I'm saying. Is
right.
I mean, credit to the engineers at Miyota, for really being able to do that work and to bring it out at a super affordable price. Sadly, it's not exclusive. It's not an exclusive movement to us. But we have a nice head start. So
but you got it first. Got it first,
and we'll have it probably for maybe close to 6 to 8 months before it gets out.
Wow.
further. And so, yeah, no, it's good for the industry. I think it brings people into the fold that could never afford maybe or want to spend, that kind of money for, some of the more expensive GMTs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm eyeing that one hard. I really am. That might.
Yeah. The steel case with the blue strap is really, really.
Yeah.
It's so good. It is really,
They're
really
both
good.
great, but I like the steel case. And
I'm with you on that one.
the relief on the map, the dial work on the watch also is
Stunning.
When you get it in person, you'll be able to appreciate the dimensionality of the dial. They did a nice job. They really did.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm really looking forward to seeing handling one of those in the near future.
So let's, I guess, kind of start to wrap it up a little bit. Let's get into kind of a little bit of a fun question, I suppose. What, give us a little bit of an insight. What's the day of Michael Benavente like? You wake up in the morning, you go to the office, and kind of walk us through like what happens in the Bulova offices.
I'm fortunate that no 2 days are really alike. I mean, there's certainly, there's a lot, going on. The office is really super busy here. Again, all of the brands that I just mentioned are, they're all based, we're all based here. So there's a lot of stuff going on. I'd say I spend a good amount of the time on product and marketing. Those are two areas that I work, with those teams, very closely.
Mm-hmm.
We have a really strong sales leads and people that look after, the revenue of the company, and they're both very, seasoned and really great. So, I'm fortunate. I probably don't have to worry about that as much as maybe I would if we didn't have, the really super strong team there. So I'm lucky there. Now that, COVID is really, the traveling has really opened up again this year. So I'm back on the road a bit as well. So there'll be, there's a bit of travel that goes along, with the job. Listen, it's a fun job. I don't have to tell you guys. I know that you know that.
Yeah.
I'm very lucky to be able to work on a brand like this that has all of the heritage and the bones, that this brand does. So of all the jobs I've held, in my career, certainly this is definitely one of the best ones I've had.
Would you call it the dream job?
I would say that. I'd say, in the place that I was in my career, and the timing was good. So I think it was symbiotic. I think I've been able to help, help with the brand a bit. And again, to my earlier mantra of wanting to leave the place a little bit better than it was when I got here. So, I think I've been able to achieve, some of that. I mean, there's still more work to do. Certainly, Joe's on me about Caravelle. So I gotta go deal with that now when I hang up, because Joe's not happy, and, we gotta make Joe happy. So you understand what I'm saying?
The Joes of the world. Yeah. There's a lot of them.
No. Thank God for the Joes and the Mikes of the world. That's what I say. Because again, you guys give us energy, even when you're not happy with the size. It's okay.
It all comes back to the size.
It does. It really does. But no, I mean, we get energy from that. We get energy from that. We want to do better. We want to improve, and that's what keeps us going.
Yeah. Well, it's like you said before. You get paid to do what you do, and we do it for free, and we're almost kind of like the unofficial Bulova ambassadors, and we have no problem putting in the time and the energy and the effort to drive that want for Bulova back to you guys again. And we're not a huge podcast, and if we can try and get the word out, to the people that are listening today, and if they get as passionate about it as we can, and they tell a friend, and then they tell a friend, and then we just try and grow that Bulova family. I mean, that's That's what it's about. That's what the Instagram community is about. It's about showing these watches to people who may not otherwise get to experience it, get to see it. I can post a picture here in Southeast United States, and somebody across the world is able to look at it. It's all about spreading that word and us helping you guys really. And it's my pleasure to do that for you guys.
Well,
it's always really neat. You get to show a picture. So like, what is that? Oh, welcome. It's fun.
Yeah. Yeah. We've converted a few people into going down the rabbit hole. That's for sure.
No, that's great. And that's where that's why I want to do this. That's why I want to be with you all on, on these opportunities where we get to speak directly, to communities that are out there and tell our story. And there's so many other stories to tell. I mean, we published the book in 2016, A History of First, which is, I don't know if you both have that book or not.
We both have that book.
We do.
It's a great book. And it really, I mean, it only touched on the surface, there's 9 chapters there, but focused on the highlights of the company. We're planning something exciting, which maybe I'll be able to reveal in a couple of months for the 150th anniversary. But, again, another way to get the word out, another medium, in a way to get the word out about the Bulova brand. Because it's really, it's a very special, forget about watches. Like, let's even forget about it. Bulova never even made a watch. Its position in pop culture in America is unbelievable. It's like when I tell people like you guys do, and you say, first radio commercial ever, first television commercial ever, space missions, 46 missions to space and back, creation of Accutron, first time that the way time was measured had been changed in over 300 years before that. We had been measuring time in the same way up until 1960. We sponsored the first Beatles tour. I mean, just all of the incredible things, the inventor of the clock radio. You can go on and on about all of the things.
And the thing that blows my mind is all of that and all the heritage and everything that has happened since, he first set foot in New York City and created all of this that he's created. People will still say Bulova is such an underrated company. And it's like, maybe I can see it a little bit, but how can you say that when you really look back and maybe it's just people don't realize.
They don't. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
I mean, if they're just looking at it from, a more surface look, I mean, they don't know all of the stuff that I just mentioned, probably even. So, Joseph Bulova coming here from Bohemia as a young man, now known as Czechoslovakia, but what him and his family with Artie did, and then the managers, that thereafter, that stand on, their shoulders, if you will, has really been, something special. The 60s and the 70s were 2 incredible decades, for the brand.
The 70s is my favorite decade for watch design, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, they really had, they took that mid-century modern, kind of design and then, blew it up, and just all of those cases, even from other, other watch brands, in not only
color choices were bold, designs were bold,
color, color,
the color use,
they weren't afraid to go like, your Jetstar butterscotch, butterscotch dial,
butterscotch and the Merlot, and
What did we decide? Merlot? No, Claret.
Claret.
It's worth
now I got to change it again. Well, Michael, we truly, from the bottom of our hearts, really genuinely appreciate you taking out of the time, out of your day to sit here with us and really give us such an insider's view and kind of a behind the scenes view as to, what Bulova is, what you guys are doing, what you're into, perhaps where you guys are headed a little bit, and kind of a little teasers here and there. Cannot thank you enough. So really, sincerely, thank you so much. Really appreciate this.
Thank you guys. Thank you for the work that you do. I mean, you're, proselytizing out there, the word of Bulova. So, we really appreciate it here at the office, and hopefully maybe you'll have me back. And if you have me back, I'll come back with some more treats.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess now is a good time to kind of discuss a little bit. So we are putting together, and Michael, you're aware of this too. We're putting together kind of a deep dive of the Bulova Watch Company. So we're looking at a 4 or 5 part series. We're looking at Caravelle. We're looking at various design eras and perhaps design styles within Bulova. We're looking at Accutron, and we even want to get pretty involved in the watchmakers initiative as well. Perhaps sending one of us, well, it would be KC, being that he's so involved in the military and can lend a different perspective than perhaps Joe and I could, to kind of give an inside view of that. So these are things that we're working on, and with help from you, Michael, and I know some other people's within the company are have expressed interest in coming on and being the expertise in some of these episodes that we're going to do. We're really excited with working with you guys on being able to put this together. And right now we're shooting for starting to release these sometime in October, and then not quite sure if we'll do how we're going to release them yet, on a bi-weekly or kind of all at once, or we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But so if you guys are listening and you've enjoyed this episode, please, there's a whole lot more Bulova content to come. So we're extremely excited to be able to bring that to everybody here in the future.
And then also just to put a kind of pin into it, if people want to take a look for new releases for Bulova, or to find Bulova's presence online, where should they go? What's going to be the best spot for them? Bulova.com?
Definitely Bulova.com.
And then there's all of the various accounts, like the Bulova Canada Instagram account is just doing so well. The Bulova corporate account is also there, and there's a variety of different ones with Bulova Mexico, Bulova Netherlands. They're all over the place. So there's all of those, and they're all doing slightly different content too, which is phenomenal.
Yep. If you want the latest news and the newest releases, they're always going to debut on Bulova.com. That's our digital flagship. And so even if we share it, many times, like we'll do a debut and share it with another retailer, it's always on Bulova.com. So great place to come and explore.
Very good. And so we're vintage guys. We love that archive series. So on our Instagram page, we do have a link in the bio. You can click on it. You can find us on Spotify, YouTube, Google Podcasts, and there is a link to the Bulova archive series. It takes you right to it, and you can look at all these great designs in a modern interpretation, and everything can be purchased there. You can pre-order the parking meter. Hopefully by the time this goes out in a few weeks,
we better had shipped it.
Hopefully, yeah, they start to ship. So
better had shipped it. Otherwise, I'm in trouble. I may not be coming on the next podcast.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. So, all right. Anything else? Anything you want to add, Michael?
I'm good. I just want to say thank you to you both again, and I look forward to catching up again and giving you some more news and information. So,
well, good. Well, we'd be glad to be the outlet for you. Absolutely. When you're ready, just let us know, and we'll definitely have you back for sure.
Yes, please.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Until next time. Cheers, y'all.